In our headlines on this Wednesday afternoon, May 8th. Delegates from Israel and Hamas are in Egypt to hammer out the terms of another ceasefire deal following the mixed response to an earlier proposal, which Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu claimed endangered the security of his people. And a swearing-in ceremony took place at the Kremlin on Tuesday to mark the start of Vladimir Putin's fresh 6-year term at the top office, during which he spoke of engaging with the West, but on an equal footing. Back on the local front, the value of Korea's car exports hit $6.8 billion in April, up over 10% on year, amid greater demand for green cars and SUVs in North America. As pledged earlier, Israel is taking part in further talks over in Egypt regarding a possible truce with Hamas after rejecting an earlier proposal that the latter had accepted. Our Kim Jong-un starts us off.
Calling it far from meeting its demands, Israel has not accepted a ceasefire deal proposed by Egypt and Qatar, which Hamas has agreed to. In a statement on Tuesday, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said that the latest truce proposal from Hamas was designed to torpedo the entry of Israeli forces into Rafah, which did not happen. While saying it is necessary to put military pressure on Hamas for the return of its own hostages, he firmly stated that Israel would not accept a proposal that endangers its own people's security.
Israel cannot accept a proposal that endangers the security of our citizens and the future of our country. Therefore, I've instructed the labour ranks that went to Cairo continue to stand firm on the conditions necessary for the release of our hostages, continue to stand firm on the essential requirements for guaranteeing Israel's security.
Netanyahu's words come after Hamas declared on Monday evening that it has agreed to a ceasefire deal. Meanwhile, Israel have pushed on with their military operations in Rafah, seizing control of the Gaza side of the Rafah border crossing on Tuesday morning. To this, a senior Hamas official warned that if Israel's military operations continue in Rafah, there will be no ceasefire deal.
If the aggression continues, there will be no ceasefire because Israelis are the ones attacking and shooting. This agreement, which the movement agreed to, represents the minimum that responds to the demands of our people and our resistance.
Amid the ongoing fighting between Israel and Hamas, the White House has confirmed that discussions on negotiations have resumed in Cairo, Egypt, and that CIA Director Bill Burns is there. While saying that they should be able to close the remaining gaps, the national security spokesman added that the U.S. will do everything to support the process. In a separate briefing, the White House spokesperson made it clear that Washington does not want to see a major operation taking place in Rafah, and that it wants to see a comprehensive plan from Israel to protect civilians who have sought refuge there. Kim Jong-un, Arirang News.
In Russia, Vladimir Putin began his 5th term in office on Tuesday with claims of a will to work with the West, provided it's on equal footing. Our Isingje covers his remarks.
Tuesday marked the beginning of another 6 years in office for Russian President Vladimir Putin, with this inauguration ceremony taking place in Moscow. His 5th term in office comes amid fierce criticism from the West amid the prolonged war in Ukraine. During his inauguration speech, Putin expressed willingness to hold talks with the West, but only on equal terms.
Dialogue, including on issues of security and strategic stability, is possible, but not from a position of force, without any arrogance, snobbishness, feeling of one's own exclusiveness, but only as equals, respecting each other's interests.
Putin also stressed that the country's state, public, and political system must remain strong and resistant to any challenges and threats in order to maintain the stable development, unity, and independence of Russia. The Russian leader also vowed to grow Russia into the world's 4th largest economy by 2030. The ambitious goal comes as Putin signed a decree that sets national development goals for 2030 and beyond on the day of his inauguration. In the decree, Putin called for Russia's GDP growth to be above the global average, while increasing research and development costs to 2% of GDP by 2030 raising the ranking of R&D spending compared to economic size to within the world's top 10. Meanwhile, South Korea's ambassador to Russia, Lee Do-hoon, attended the inauguration. A South Korean government official who spoke on the condition of anonymity said that Lee's participation was decided after careful consideration of various pending bilateral issues and the need to manage bilateral relations with Moscow. His visit also came despite the boycott of Western countries amid the protracted war in Ukraine. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, North Korea's Kim Jong-un, for his part, sent a congratulatory letter to his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin. According to the regime state media on this Wednesday, the letter was delivered through the Russian embassy in Pyongyang. A similar letter was sent back in March by Kim following news of Putin's re-election, in which the former is said to have highlighted the importance of closer cooperation. The two leaders met for a rare summit last September in Russia. In France, French President Emmanuel Macron and his visiting Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping met for a second day of summit talks in a more comfortable setting back on Tuesday. Our Yun-jin has details.
The trip to Europe by China's head of state Xi Jinping, which began in France, coincides with the 60th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic ties between the two countries. In a press conference, French President Emmanuel Macron expressed gratitude to Xi for making the trip to France at such a sensitive time for the world and highlighted the importance of a stable EU-China relationship.
The France-China relationship is steeped in history and features mutual respect and mutual trust. I believe it can play a useful role beyond bilateral relations and, to a large extent, promote EU-China relations and world stability.
Following a trilateral meeting with Macron and European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen in Paris on Monday, the Chinese leader visited the Pyrenees Mountains in southern France on Tuesday. Accompanied by their wives on the trip, Xi and Macron met for the second straight day, with talks said to have been friendly in nature. Reports say Xi made few concessions on a number of issues raised by Macron, including Beijing's ties with Moscow on the prolonged war in Ukraine. Following traditional performances by locals, Macron gifted Xi a woolen blanket made in the Pyrenees, along with a Tour de France jersey and Armagnac from the nearby southwestern region, which is a brandy at risk of Chinese trade sanctions. Advisors to the French president described the trip as being in line with Macron's history of trying to establish outside-of-protocol personal relationships with his counterparts. With Xi, he wasn't able to hug or make other gestures like winking or slapping his counterparts on the back, which he had done in the past with U.S. President Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin. France was the first leg of the Chinese president's three-nation European tour from May 5th to 10th. Xi arrived in Serbia on Tuesday to continue a trip that is seen as an attempt to split U.S.-led anti-China initiatives in Europe. Next up on Xi's European tour is a trip to Hungary. For both Serbia and Hungary, China is the largest trading partner outside the European Union. Yun-jin, Arirang News.
And speculation is mounting about a possible trip to China by Foreign Minister Cho Tae-yul next week, ahead of a regional trilateral summit here in capital Seoul later this month. Our foreign affairs correspondent Bae Eun-ji reports.
Foreign Minister Cho Tae-yul is reportedly set to visit Beijing next week as South Korea seeks to mend relations with China before the country's leaders meet for a trilateral summit in Seoul. South Korean media reported Tuesday that his trip will take place sometime around May 13th. The Foreign Ministry has yet to confirm but did not deny that his visit will take place soon.
South Korea and China have been communicating closely based on a mutual understanding of the importance of high-level talks. We are in the final stages of talks regarding Minister Cho Tae-yul's visit to China.
This is Cho's first visit to China since he took office in January. It's also the first visit to Beijing by a South Korean foreign minister in more than 6 years. Cho is set to hold talks with his Chinese counterpart Wang Yi and discuss a wide range of bilateral and global matters, including security issues such as asking for China's constructive role in countering North Korea's nuclear missile threats, as well as economic issues. The top diplomat's visit comes ahead of the trilateral summit between the leaders of South Korea, Japan, and China that will likely take place later this month in Seoul. Seoul's foreign ministry earlier said South Korea is in final consultations with Beijing and Tokyo to hold the upcoming summit on May 26th and 27th. If it takes place this month, this will be the first time in almost 4.5 years since the meeting last took place in Cheongdu in December 2019. Relations between Seoul and Beijing have been strained over the issue of China forcibly sending back North Korean defectors. Recently, the Chinese government reportedly sent back a large number of escapees to North Korea, with human rights groups in South Korea saying that China repatriated at least 260 of them in late April. All eyes are now on whether Cho's visit to Beijing could help stabilize ties between the two countries. 배은지, Arirang News.
Overseas shipments of Korean cars hit a fresh high in April amid greater demand for green cars and SUVs in the North American market. Our business correspondent Lee Soo-jin reports.
South Korea's auto exports reached a new monthly high in April. Data released by the Ministry of Trade, Industry and Energy on Wednesday showed that the value of car exports stood at $6.8 billion, topping the previous record set in November last year. This is up 10.3% compared to April the previous year. And the cumulative value of exports for the January to April period rose 4.7% on year to some $24 billion, also a record high for that period. The ministry mostly attributed the rise in car exports to the high demand for eco-friendly cars and SUVs, especially in North America. By region, the value of outbound shipments to North America was the highest, rising more than 36% compared to the previous year. The export value of eco-friendly vehicles surged more than 11% on year to $2.29 billion, smashing the previous record set in March last year. This was led by a surge in the value of outbound shipments of hybrid car exports in April, which jumped a whopping 55% compared to the previous year. Domestic production levels were also up 3.5% on year, with over 390,000 units manufactured in April, the most produced in a single month since March last year, partly due to there being one more working day compared to April last year. And while overall domestic sales dropped 5.5% compared to the previous year, the high demand for hybrid vehicles was also seen domestically as well, as sales surged 35% on year. The Trade Ministry says that its auto export target for this year is $75 billion. As part of its plans to reach this goal, it will allocate some $320 million this year and $1.4 billion over the next 5 years into automotive technology development in partnership with the private sector. Lee Soo-jin, Arirang News.
And in related news, this year the government will invest 9.7 trillion won or $7.1 billion into the local battery and automotive industries. Now, such intentions follow Washington's recent decision to delay by 2 years sanctions against electric vehicles containing Chinese graphite. The implications of this decision were addressed during a meeting between Trade Minister An Deok-eun and Korea's industry heavyweights on Wednesday. Talks revolved around ways to ensure self-sufficiency by building a secure and resilient supply chain on the local battery front over the next 2 years through broader collaboration between the government here and relevant industries. TikTok and its Chinese parent company ByteDance are suing the U.S. government over a law that could ban the app's services in America. The lawsuit filed on Tuesday in the U.S. Court of Appeals argues that the law sealed by President Joe Biden last month violates free speech by, quote, silencing 170 million American users of the platform. The law was passed by lawmakers amid concerns that user data may be shared with China. The law gives ByteDance until next January to sell TikTok or have its services blocked.
In other news, Korea and Italy are celebrating 140 years of diplomatic relations this year. That being said, Culture Minister Yoo In-chun was in Rome to see the launch of a joint cultural campaign aimed at creating lasting connections. Our culture correspondent Song Yu-jin reports from Rome.
Though more than 9,000 kilometers apart, Korea and Italy have a lot in common. That's how Korea's Culture Minister Yoo In-chun describes the two countries' ties.
Korea's connection with Italy runs deep. Geographically, they're both located on peninsulas. And on a personal note, I see parallels in their people, the joyful energy, trendy style, and abundant talent.
2024 marks the 140th anniversary of diplomatic relations between Korea and Italy. To celebrate, both countries have declared 2024 to 2025 as a year of cultural exchange. Minister Yoo took a 3-day visit to Rome for the opening night of the 2024-2025 Korea-Italy Year of Cultural Exchange. Italy has long been a source of inspiration for him.
My first trip to Italy was in around 1987. From Rome to Napoli to Sicily, the weight of history and tradition hit me like a ton of bricks. And every time I visit this country, it makes me focus on the present and future. During my term, I want to create festivals that can represent Korea and that people from all over the world can enjoy together. For example, an opera festival like Verona's.
The Culture Ministry aims to foster a blend of modern and traditional cultural exchanges through this project, not just K-pop or K-dramas. Plans include holding traditional and contemporary Korean dance performances, exhibiting artwork by veteran Korean artists, and holding tourism fairs in Italy. But the most important thing is forging lasting connections.
What matters is providing a chance for young talent from both countries to interact and collaborate, so they can together create a cultural fusion unique to Korea and Italy. For instance, we're thinking of creating a small-scale joint opera production.
Through this cultural diplomacy, both countries hope to deepen their ties even further. Song Yu-jin, Arirang News, Rome.
And it's been 2 years since Cheong Wa Dae, the former presidential office, also referred to as the Bluhaus, was transformed into a cultural landmark open to the public. Now, to celebrate this occasion, the Culture Ministry and the Cheong Wa Dae Foundation are hosting a concert called Bluhaus that blends diverse genres such as traditional Korean music as well as jazz and video art. It will take place at the main building every Wednesday at 8 p.m. starting tonight until July 10th. On the local entertainment front, the Baeksang Arts Awards took place on Tuesday evening. Director Kim Jong-un of December 12 The Day won the grand prize in film, while Disney Plus original series Moving won the grand prize in television. The movie December 12 The Day, based on the December 12 military coup in 1979, attracted around 13 million viewers last year. Moving is a fantasy drama based on a webtoon and is the second series from a streaming platform to win the award following Netflix's Squid Game, that is, in the year 2022. The movie with the most awards, however, was Exhumer, which was the first local production to secure 10 million viewers this year. It won 4 awards, including Best Director for Chang Jae-hyun and Best Actress for Kim Jong-un. The Baeksang Arts Awards have been held since 1965.
Let's take a look at the latest news in the world now. In the United States, there were some heated exchanges on the 13th day of former U.S. President Donald Trump's hush money trial, involving one of the case's central figures, adult film actress Stormy Daniels. Daniels, who alleges she was paid $130,000 US to remain quiet about a sexual encounter with the former president, was on the witness stand and was given a difficult time by the defense, who accused her of extortion. Daniels repeatedly denied the claims, and voices were raised during the cross-examination. Earlier, while being questioned by the prosecution, Daniels gave details of the alleged encounter in a Lake Tahoe hotel in 2006, including a reference to the silk pajamas worn by Trump. Trump is facing 34 felony counts of falsifying business records as part of a scheme to suppress negative stories that could have influenced his presidential campaign. The trial is set to resume Thursday when Trump's defense team will continue cross-examining Daniels. India, the world's most populous nation, is in the third phase of its seven-phase general election that began on April 19th. Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Union Home Minister Amit Shah were among the voters on Tuesday. Voting for the third phase of elections started at 7 a.m. in 93 constituencies, spread across 11 states and union territories. However, there were reports of sporadic incidents of violence in 4 constituencies. The third phase of the elections for the Lok Sabha, India's lower house, has over 1,300 candidates in the fray, including around 120 women. Multinational tech giant Apple on Tuesday unveiled its latest OLED screens for its high-end iPad Pro models, including the iPad Air and iPad Pro tablets. Apple CEO Tim Cook said it marked the biggest day for iPad since its introduction. It's also the first time Apple has released new iPad models since 2022, the longest gap between updates since the product was launched in 2011. The iPad Pro, Apple's top-of-the-range tablet, will be available in 2 sizes, an 11-inch model and a 13-inch model, and is reportedly thinner than previous models, measuring only 5.1 millimeters in thickness. In Canada, police say a security guard at rapper Drake's Toronto mansion was shot and seriously wounded in the early hours of Tuesday morning. Authorities say shots were fired from a vehicle before suspects fled the scene. It has not been confirmed whether the 5-time Grammy Award winner was at home during the incident. Drake and U.S. rapper Lamar have been involved in an escalating war of words, with each releasing tracks dissing the other. The police said the motive behind the shooting, as well as the details of the shooter or the vehicle, are not yet known. Choi Ji-hee, Arirang News.
Good afternoon. Morning rain in certain parts of the country has let up, but Jeollanam-do province and Jeju could see rain into the afternoon. Then after murky and wet skies, things will get much brighter in the south. Meanwhile, the capital area had a sunny but chilly start to Parents' Day. Breezy morning temperatures are rising fast to the 20s this afternoon, and we'll notice temperatures getting closer to the norms as the week goes on. Take good care of yourself during the temperature roller coaster. Afternoon highs should be 1 to 7 degrees higher today. Seoul gets up to 21 degrees, but Busan will be breezier at 18 degrees Celsius. Much brighter skies in store with decent air quality nationwide. So it's a good day to spend some time outdoors in the afternoon if you can with sun protection items. We are looking at another chance of nationwide rain this weekend. Then things will get much warmer as we head towards mid-May. With that in mind, let's take a look at the international weather conditions. Right, and that ends our Wednesday afternoon newscast. Thank you for watching. Do stay for our panel session coming up next.